It's crazy. I had dinner with the spouse of the CEO company that's multi-billion dollar, and all that took was a DM.
I'll do things in my business, like for example, say like we're profiting a lot and like things are going well. I'm like, I'll go, how can I just completely F this up?
Ask questions. Just go out there and be curious, because just that genuine curiosity that humans have that we shy away from just because it's like, oh, but I don't want to impose or I don't want to disturb, or it's like, dude, you're curious, go get your answer.
Keep on going, Jimmy.
Once again, man, I don't beat you said it, but I love that match analogy.
Yeah.
Go rub up on things. And imagine if the match got the price. I'm serious. I'm serious.
What's up, man? How you doing, dude?
Good, brother.
Apologies for the delayed setup. I know it took a lot longer than expected.
Oh,
but
it's all good, bro. I've been a part of a lot of these sets, so.
yeah, we got the pizza though. So, what's your order, man? You told me you hit me up. You're like, hey, bro, I need pineapple and chicken and like so like. We got you 3 larges right here. You're gonna have to go through all of them.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I'll have 3 slices, but yeah, dominantly it's pineapple, black olive, and chicken. That's the go-to for me.
That's sick, man.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you for hopping on, bro. So, I think it's super cool to kind of finally be sitting with you, like on like more official terms, because like we have a lot of like times together where we hang out and like we talk a lot of smack, and you guys know how it is with like the having a relationship with the boys type of thing. So it's interesting to kind of like actually get them on camera. Because you started the podcast. When did Passionate Few launch? What year?
I started it initially probably in 2017.
Yeah.
On the eve of, I was working at Tesla at the time. I'm like $30,000 in debt. I'm like depressed. I'm lost. I'm drinking. I'm smoking. I was the top sales rep at Tesla, and I was making money, but somehow I was just like in debt. I was in this really fog of a place, and so. Out of desperation, one day I just said, F it. I just quit my job at Tesla, and I hired a coach. And my coach said if life was perfect, what would happen next? And told him, hey, I'd do a podcast. I'd interview, I'd inspire millions of people. I'd make millions of dollars, and I'd be friends with X, Y, and Z. Like, I didn't know how or what. That was the only level of specificity I had. And so I hired that life coach out of pure desperation, and one thing led to another. Ended up starting the podcast. So that was 2017, and it was born out of a time of inspiration and desperation for me.
And we met when? Did we meet in 2017 or 2016?
I think 2017. Yeah, probably around that time.
I met you right when you like literally launched. I remember your first 2 episodes.
Yeah.
You're like hitting me up. I remember you hitting me up and you're like, hey, what do you think of this thumbnail or this thumbnail? And I'm like, super cool to see your growth, man.
Yeah, dude. I won it, man. It was a dream for me, Mm-hmm. I didn't know that what was possible. I knew what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I would just, I'd be like, man, I would love to interview these amazing people. And at the time, I think this, but what initially for me when I started the podcast, what did it for me was I had an ex-girlfriend at the time, and we broke up. And the one thing is like there's 3 things she loved a lot. And it was hot Cheetos, it was Quest bars, and it was Grant Cardone. And so I made it my mission that first year. She broke up with me. Never in my life. I was always like, I'm the man, healthy ego check there. And she broke up with me one day, just point blank. And I was super in love with her at the time. And so, like I said, it was like the heartbreak of desperation and inspiration motivated me to, like from zero, just start interviewing the big names right away. So I wanted to interview Grant Cardone, the billion-dollar founder of Quest, Tom Bilyeu, and the creator of Hot Cheetos. And my first year, I ended up interviewing all 3.
Nice.
And I saw Grant Cardone. I had no clue how to get him, no money, no nothing. Couldn't even afford gas in my tank. But I was just on this like, F it, life's short. Like, let's just take magic swings, right? At the universe. And so, yeah, I remember driving to Malibu. I saw on Grant Cardone's Instagram story that they were going to be having dinner in Beverly Hills. Like they were in town from Florida, right? Because they live in Miami. So I saw that they went out to like a restaurant there. On their story, they were eating there. So I drove, waited outside 2.5 hours, and cold pitched him on being on my podcast. And he said yes. And that was like my second or third interview. And like, they just said, hey, can you film in Malibu? They said, yeah, right? Like I go up to Grant, I say, hey Grant, I'm a big fan. And he said, yeah, man, you know, and I said, I drove 2.5 hours to be here just to meet you and all that. And I would love to, you know, interview on the podcast. And I know you'd never do it. I know I'm a small podcaster. I know I don't have a brand, right? Like I brought up all of the objection, sales, handling stuff that he teaches. And he just liked the approach, did the podcast, and then fast forward, like I did that, got like 200,000 views, and I started making affiliate money. So it kind of like, I took big swings and 2 or 3 of them hit, and then the domino effect kind of took over right away.
Dude, I got an interesting question for you. So,
Yeah.
you know, do you think like in business, because I think a lot of people like talking about the energy they put into growing their businesses, right? Do you feel that like if from day one somebody started something trying to take big shots and like maybe failed way more than the guy was taking small shots, but then like out of the 101 kind of succeeded, do you think that strategy is better looking back now? Or would you have like kind of taken the steps of getting like smaller guests like step by step, or you know, if somebody were to kind of like start their own show, but just in general too, in business too? Because like, do you take big risks or do you take small risks? Like,
Yeah, great question. So I'm a big fan of reframing things, right? Like I believe, this is gonna sound really like weird, but I believe that like words are social constructs. So like the meanings of them are just made up. And when we react emotionally to things that we make up over time, over a day, a week, a month, a year, a lot of delusions you believe and react to aren't even true. So like, for me, I just reframe it as like, what am I strong at, right? Like for me, I'm very artistic, I'm very flowy. I'm not the most organized, I'm not the most XYZ. I love production, I love attention to detail, I love art. I'm passionate about it more so than business. So I think it's about taking high leverage risks with your skill sets, you know? Like I'm the type of person, it's literally easier for me to like interview a billionaire than clean my room sometimes. Like literally, because I'm set, like my desk is a mess. But like, you know, hey, can you interview this big billionaire tomorrow? Yeah, absolutely, let's run it. Like, but clean my room sometimes or organize but then you just find ways to like leverage that. So have a team for that, right? Or my assistant organizing my stuff. So I think it's about taking risks that are aligned with your strengths and not your weaknesses. You know, build your strengths and then from the abundance of that, work on your weaknesses, you know? I like to say outsource your anxieties.
Outsource your anxieties?
Yeah, anything that gives me anxiety.
What kind of anxieties do you guys have like running your shows? Like what?
Interviewing him.
Interviewing him, it's an anxiety? God dang, why?
No,
you're eating pizza, bro.
Just piggybacking off of that last thing you said, how would you recommend someone finds their strengths, understands what it is that they're naturally good at, rather than telling someone go take a course for 2 or 3 months and get good at something?
Yeah, wonderful question. And I think it's so beautiful that kids find it all the time. And I think we forget it as we get older. It's very simple. I spent years interviewing over 100 multi-million-dollar entrepreneurs, athletes, celebrities, all of this to try to find a lot of these answers. And what I have found is that much like a kid, you just have to try things and try things fast. I saw a study that said it's funny, when you're a kid, most people from the ages of 1 to 10 try more sports than they'll try from 10 to 50. Think about that. So in 10 years, you'll try things. Or think of a little kid. Little kid doesn't go, Mom, what's my passion? Mom, what snacks do I like? Mom, what's my favorite sport? He doesn't ask that. He doesn't smoke a joint. He doesn't reflect. He doesn't self-sabotage. What do? They go try it. Hey, want to play basketball? Cool. Oh, I like it. Hey, want to play baseball? Want to play soccer? I like this girl. Oh, she flirts with me. Oh, it makes me feel cool. I want to talk to her. I don't like it. Oh, I like this guy. You just go try things, touch things, interact with things. And I think when you do that, you find your strength. The way I like to think of it is, imagine like a match, right? If I have a match and I try to rub it against a whole bunch of things, but that match doesn't light up in flame, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It just means you have to find what does light it up. And when you go rub up on things, you try this, you try reading this book, you try hanging out with these friends, you try this activity, you ask this business person if you could shadow him, you ask, for time to learn about this. Like if you do that, you learn about yourself in that process. So that's how they do it. That's how you learn about yourself. No one's thinking to themselves, what's my passion? Oh, got it, cool. Like it doesn't work like that. It's iterative, it's very feel. And I think we forget as we get older to feel things, touch things, ask questions. The
metaphor for the match is an absolute gem. That's actually really cool. I'm really stuck on the question that you said the life coach asked you, which was, if life If life is perfect right now, what's next?
Right.
I think that alone could, like, you can just ponder on that question and like completely shift the way you move. Completely.
Yeah.
Because then what it does is it allows you to connect the whole conversation back. It allows you to then go, what do I want to try that's new?
Right.
How am I going to discover what I'm good at?
Right.
You know what? I've always been interested in this, and then you take your hand at it because now you have that mindset.
Yeah.
How long did you have the life coach for?
Oh, I still have coaches till today.
Okay.
But I still work with Dave. In fact, he texted me. I have probably a session with him
The
tomorrow.
same life coach.
Same one, but I have business coaches, life coaches, sometimes 2, 3 at a time. So for me, investing in that is so important, because if I leave my growth and discipline up to the friends I hang out with, or the occasional YouTube video here or there, I'm not going to get very far, right?
No doubt.
So anchoring to environments and committing, and nothing commits a person more than time or money.
Okay,
when you commit both, it levels you up.
No doubt. So the reason why I was asking is because I feel like what's really, really difficult is not necessarily understanding that you need to work harder, or that you need to learn more, whatever the case is. Because I feel like in terms of mindset, you can reach a certain level, but your actions still kind of like lag behind and they don't follow. And the reason why is because, when you look at people who have good work ethic, for example, that's been instilled in them because they have that dad who had that hustler mentality and never quit. So they grew up watching that. But for somebody who doesn't have those values instilled,
Right.
you would recommend that person constantly has that, in this example, it would be like a life coach, in order that belief becomes instilled, rather than learn it for a little bit, let the coach go, and then somehow you think you're going to do it on your own.
That can. Everyone's different, right? I can't give a one size fits all. I can't say what's worked for me. That's worked for me. And I just find in general, left to their devices, most people default to lower standards. This is why after a breakup, people go back to their ex for a little comfort, right? This is why, I think certain things like that are important. But remember, it's about the need. It's not about the medium to meet the need, right? We all have needs. But for example, this could get kind of deep on you. I know Omar Najreen would appreciate the philosophical depth of this one.
Absolutely.
I'm ready. Dude, pizza in hand, and I have ranch, I'm ready, dude.
Yeah. But essentially, people do things in life to meet needs. Every action any of us ever does, even if it's pointless. If you're bored and you just, flick your hair, you're bored, you're meeting a need of stimulation in the moment, right? So we all do things to meet needs. Now, the mediums with which we meet those needs are different, right? In the same way that, a Mother Teresa has a sense of meeting the need of significance and contribution to her community and saving people and helping people, a gangster who in his mind grew up on the streets is meeting his need for significance when he puts a gun to your head and says, hey, give me your money. Because in that moment, he's significant. So he's trying to meet that need on a very individual level, right? Forget moral judgment, but what's going on in the individual. And so once you realize people do things to meet needs, so the medium is irrelevant. It's the outcome of that need that's important. So long story short, you don't have to hire a life coach, but you should create some sort of rhythm that anchors you. The form can be flexible, but I think meeting that need is very important for growth.
Now, for you, do the life coaches, obviously there's the educational aspect and they help shift your perspective and whatnot, but do they also hold you accountable?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
That piece is nice. Sometimes friends can, but I don't know, in this generation, in this day and age, maybe just living in the US, I don't really find a lot of that here. So coaches are a way to financially solve that problem now.
What made you want to get one? I mean, I personally never thought about actually just going out and hiring or talking to a life coach my whole life.
Yeah, great question. I talk to people who win, and I would ask people who win when I was broke. I would go to Ferrari car shows. It's so funny, man, because I used to look at all these people and be like, duh. And then now I'm friends with some of them. A lot of them have become clients. A lot of them have been on the show. So I've gotten the privilege to see behind the scenes. But even early on, man, when I had nothing, I'd go to a Ferrari car show. I'd go to the dealership. I'd ask the sales guy, because I always wanted a Ferrari. I always wanted a Mercedes S-Class fully loaded, and I always wanted a Ferrari, and I had this thing. So I'd go to the dealer. I'd say, hey, well, people who buy this car, what do they normally do for a living? What do they normally make? What are the payments? I just familiarized myself with it. And in the process of just kind of being a little kid like that, you know, I meet people, and a lot of them who are successful say I have a coach or I have a mentor, and so I just figured, okay, I can't figure it out on my own. Mom and dad can't figure it out. My significant other can't figure it out. What other options do I have? Sit here and hope and wish and let years fly by? I'd rather waste money and find out on a coach or mentor or whatever, time, commitment. Again, the form doesn't matter, but that's why I just feel like when you commit to it, you take things more. The more you pay attention.
Mm-hmm. You know what's interesting I love about this guy? So we used to fight about this a lot. So I'm like super operational, and I love to like detail oriented, like focus on all the deeds, systems, teams, all this stuff. He's more of like an artist, kind of likes to focus on like the bigger picture. He's more like, you know what he said, like production side of things and stuff like that. But one thing I used to always hate, he'd get stuff done in a way where it was like super nonchalant.
Yeah.
You still do it.
Yeah.
Like he's very like fluid.
Yeah.
You know, in the sense of like, everything good? Oh, okay. Yeah, he's very fluid in a sense of just how you put in the effort. Like I feel like, you know, seeing your work, it's unique because like you kind of take it seriously enough to care about actually getting it done, but not to a point to like allow it to like screw up your like present life. You know, he still has a smack load of fun. I mean, like super cool off camera and all that kind of stuff. Keeps it super light, like, you know, jokes a lot and like, you know, keeps it like just unique. And I think that by itself in a weird way attracts things to just happen. Like 100%. You just, and at the same time, I do agree, like the whole Ferrari thing. Like I went, you know, me and him talk about this stuff all the time.
That's how we met.
That's how we met, actually. You know, the first day we met, I actually had a Ferrari rented out. And I picked this guy up. I was like, yo, I hear about what you're doing. Let's ride. Let's go. And he was just like, we had so much fun. And then the second time we met, I had a Lambo.
Huracan.
A Huracan.
We didn't even know how to drive it.
Yeah.
I remember we were in it. We pulled up to valet, and we wanted to look cool. We had our sunglasses on. There was like girls or whatever. And then we're just like chilling. But like the guy was like, okay, you can back out from the valet thing after they gave us the car. And we were like trying to figure out how to like put it in reverse.
Yeah, we had no idea.
I was just telling the guy like 1 minute. And like we're like, oh my God. And then we're gonna like scrape the bottom of it. Yeah.
It's too much fun.
So we were just reckless, man. But yeah, no, at that time, bro, if I had $800 in my bank account, I would spend $500 to go taste a Ferrari. What am I gonna do? Eat Chipotle for like 6 months? I'd much rather have an intense experience that like commits me to like a higher level.
And you know what's interesting though about that, man? Like
powerful.
I really think that's what levels you up, because I was actually watching a video literally earlier, like yesterday, about this, talking about like how to like quote unquote be successful from like even a religious standpoint as like Muslims and stuff. And I found it to be really interesting because like, you know, a lot of it was very heavily focused on like keeping it light, making sure to like realize that life isn't like you're gonna die at the end of the day. So it's like it's not as intense as you make it to be.
Right.
And really kind of forcing, like kind of like embodying the individual that you'd like to become now. Right.
Yeah.
So it's you know, I think those memories, it introduces you to things. You know, because I've actually had a lot of friends, like sometimes like I've had some friends who like would borrow my car. You know, they bring it back, they're like, oh my God, like this is crazy, love it, this is amazing. And like, dude, I had one friend who did that, and then like he went and got a better job, and he was crushing, and he bought himself an M3. And I was like, that's hilarious. He did all that just because like he felt like kind of like how like what he liked and what he enjoyed, and he tasted it, and you know, it became a reality. So I really think like doing those like moves, eventually something will pay off and it'll hit, and once it hits.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. My dream has always been to live oceanfront in Laguna Beach. And I'll never forget it. I was in Laguna Beach one time walking on the water, and I saw this guy with his family, and I was just like, wow, like my life is so chaotic. It would be so nice to have like this house oceanfront, nice wife, kids, like they're just like it's literally, I was watching like a postcard. And so I see the guy, and he's smoking a cigar, and I ask him, I said, you know, sir, you know, if you don't mind me asking, you know, what does it take to live here, you know? And I'll never forget what he told me. He said, nobody lives in the water on accident. He said, nobody lives on the water on accident. So everybody who lives oceanfront on the water planned to be there. That was a goal.
Yeah.
You know, that they didn't just end up Laguna Beach oceanfront. And I love that he said that, because it little things like that. You know, a lot of people could fantasize about stuff, but if you hold something congruently in your mind long enough, and you take enough imperfect action, anybody who's ever succeeded took their imperfect action. If they did it, you can get very far too.
I like how you're saying imperfect
That's the whole game. That's the whole game.
Because we're always trying to go for perfection. And if we don't reach it, if we don't go for it, then it's many times, if we're not in a position of perfection, we don't end up achieving that goal or even trying it.
Everyone romanticizes we get in our own way the most. I think everyone, myself included, I think a lot of us romanticize the things we want, and we make it so romantic that we can't get it. And I think we do this with partners. I think we do this in business. I think, like, how it is. Like, the biggest deals are the ones like when business is flourishing and you don't even need the deal.
Yep, when you're like chill about it.
We have this 50K option, this 100K option. And you're like, let's just
we'll take the 100K. Yeah, you're like, oh, okay, fine, sounds
it's cheaper
good.
long term. We could write it off. But when you're dealing with like high level pressure and high level stuff, those clients aren't there, And sometimes people get in trouble because they take business that they shouldn't be taking, So things like that, I think, matter too.
No, it's you have to come from a place of abundance, 100%.
Yeah.
We would even I'll tell you, we would go out, we would buy like on Amazon those fake $100 bills. We literally have videos of me in this.
Dude, I had a money counter.
Yeah, we had I think we bought like $500,000, like $100,000 or something like that. What was it? I don't know. Yeah, it was like $40 off Amazon, right? And then we would throw it around in the room. Bro, we had, I think at the time, I was broke as schmack. Like, I didn't even know how I was gonna pay my next meal. But I was like sitting there like throwing things this left and right, and then I remember when I closed my first deal, we rented out the Lambo and the Ferrari. I think the deal was like $5,000, and I spent I think $3,000 in those 2 days on just the car.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I don't care what I'm gonna do, however the heck I'm gonna get here, I'm gonna get here. Like, this is too good to be true,
Because you're paying to tap into the energy, not the individual activity. You're not paying for the rental for 12 hours. You're paying for the association of knowing what the leather smells like, right? Before I got my S-Class, I went to the dealership probably 30 times, dude. And then I ended up getting the exact one to the T I wanted, fully spec'd out exactly how I wanted. And the last one in the country, actually. So that was actually a funny story, too. But yeah, dude, I walked in a million times. I test drove it. I smelled the leather. I looked at the numbers. Even though I had no clue, bro. The payments were it's like a $120,000 car. I have $1,800 in my bank account. No viable prospects for sales. And I'm like, no, I'm going to get, right? So when you have numbers in mind, you go, okay, I want to live here. It's going to cost this much. When you just get clear, okay, to live this life, I need to make $15,000, $20,000 a month. Okay, if I want to save an extra this, okay, what are viable options? I could do this, I could do that. So the willingness to have planned stamina, if you will, and follow through and act on it, I think that's what most people lack.
I still do it till today, man.
Yeah.
I think a couple weeks back, I went to the Rolls-Royce dealership.
Yeah.
So I love the Coronet and the Ghost. Oh, those two cars I really want.
Yeah.
So I walk in and I'm like, hey, I'm just curious, you guys lease these cars? And they go, yeah. And she goes, I was like, how much? And she goes, oh, it's $80,000 down and $6,500 a month.
Right.
I'm like, dope. All right. And how about if we get two? Do you guys do some sort of thing? He's like, oh, we can maybe cross it out and get two of you for 10 G's a month. Right. I'm like, all right, cool. Can I get your card? And I've been texting her.
Yeah.
I'm just developing a relationship type of thing. Because I know for a fact, if God wills, eventually I'll be going there and ordering it. You know?
And then it teaches you now. Okay, cool. I probably need to be making $350 a month, $500,000 a month.
Yeah. To be able to afford that.
So now that's your motivate. That's the
And then because a lot of people
keep it vague and then they go, oh well, when I make it, I will.
Well, it's because we live in a society today.
Yeah.
We live in a society today where oh, don't be materialistic. Oh, don't do certain things. And I get it, right? I don't think you should be materialistic to a certain point, but we forget that you should reward yourself for the actions you're taking, or else you're going to stop doing it because it's hard. Mm-hmm. Right? It's not going to be an easy path. And so if you're not getting rewarded as you kind of accomplish milestones, it's not going to feel good, and you're not going to want to continue.
That's why to speak to BB's point. I love what he was saying about how important it is or how he asked the question about how important it is for a mentor, but also the fact that if you a lot of people don't know, they don't know what they don't know, so it's hard for them to have urgency about what they don't know.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's true.
But I think because I was there, and I think you just have to imperfect action your way to just scratch, sniff, look, just look, imperfect action. That's how anybody builds a business. I interviewed Jean-Paul DeJoria, the billion-dollar founder of not one but two billion-dollar companies, Patron Tequila and Paul Mitchell Shampoo and Conditioner. This guy was homeless at 37, and I asked him, I'm like, dude, do you ever pinch yourself, thinking you're the 45th wealthiest person in the country, you have all these thousands of employees, you're the boss and all that, do you ever step out and go, holy shit, I have billions in the bank? And he goes, Omar, the true secret is every day. I have no idea what I'm doing, right? And I love that because you have a high-level CEO humanizing the fact that everyone is sort of winging it, and in the winging it you gain competence, and if you can wing it for long enough and get a little good, and a little good, you can go from sucking to being good to being great if you just stay in it long enough, you know. And that's it. There's no, you know, there's romanticisms to it, but I think that simple thing, a lot of people, it doesn't click.
Dude, also, I'm sure you can agree, man, you'd be surprised how people are willing to help. When you're in that momentum of just like, hey man, I'm just here to figure it out, you know, like I'm not the best, I'm trying to be the best, I'm gonna, you know, work my ass off until I get to the best. Can I get your help? Can I pick your brain? Can I like figure out like what I need to do to like be in a position to help you out? You know what I mean? And they're so willing. I don't think I've ever had anybody like directly tell me no. When you just like simply go, hey, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm working on, you know, I need your help. You know, like for example, you know how I switched over to cybersecurity like end of last year. Right. Big jump, you know, huge jump. Like, oh my God, I don't know this industry, blah, blah. Instead of freaking out, I took a step back. I'm like, all right, who do I need to talk to like tell me what I need to go, right? And I started like networking with other guys who successfully built businesses. And I'm like, what's the best way I can, you know, have them be involved where it's a win-win-win for all of us? I opened up a board of advisors for the company and we meet once a month. Once a month for 3 hours. I have like a guy who's doing $100 million, a guy who's doing all this like really insane stuff in the industry. They come and they'll be like, here's what you got to do. Boom, 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 right? And just that one action alone has probably cut the learning curve, like in terms of implementing what I need to implement, in like probably by a good 80%, you know? For sure. In about 8 months, we figured out what people take years, you know, to develop. And it's just because like you just put yourself out there, you have good energy, and you're just like having fun as you go. And you have that confidence too that like you deserve it. Like I think it's interesting because like one of the things that I heard recently was like, you know, all of us here are Muslim, right? So like one of us here I heard recently was like, you know, if you undermine your own value, you're kind of undermining God's creation. Because God created you perfect. So you have exactly everything you need to succeed at the highest level. And so if you're telling yourself that you're not gonna do that, you're basically saying, God, you did not create me as perfect to be able to accomplish those tasks. And so technically you're kind of like dismissing God's like amazing creation that he put within you. And so if you recognize that you are full and you are complete and you have everything you need to like really win, and you just kind of go with that energy, like it'll flow, it'll come to you, you know. And I've seen you like accomplish the closest, but you're also really ballsy. I'll give that to you. Super ballsy and like very like spontaneous. Like I remember that one time. What was that one comedian that you were trying to get in front of?
Oh, Jerry Seinfeld.
Yeah, Jerry Seinfeld. Remember that? And you're like, he hit me up randomly. He's like, yo, there's this like comedy show going on in LA. I need you to like pick me up, take me, like, you know, let's just go figure this out. I'm like, what are you gonna do? He's like, I don't know. I'm just gonna go figure it out. So you want to kind of tell him the story?
Sure. Yeah, I got a couple stories like that. That's happened to me so many times. And I'm even like, what the heck? How does that? But I find that this is why like I like keeping a light energy and keeping things fun. Because I realize like it's all not that serious anyways. and everyone, even at the highest levels, they're looking to lighten the load. Like everyone wants a lighter life, a lighter friend, a lighter energy. And you can be efficient and productive in a lighter energy. So when you live in a lighter energy, you're more, like for example, I love spontaneous things, right? One of the stories is I wanted to connect with Goggins, right? David Goggins. And I had this impulse, right? I'd been working, traveling a lot, things were going really well in business and everything. And I remember I just had this impulse to go to Vegas, right? And I don't drink and I don't gamble, but I love the good energy. I love the upbeat energy, right? Wherever I'm at, right? Dubai was beautiful, places with upbeat energy. I just love to be there. I'm kind of an introvert. I'm pretty mellow, but I just love being in that energy. Long story short, no rhyme or reason. I just trusted my intuition to go to Vegas. I fly to Vegas, and I'm in a good energy. All these things are happening. And then as I'm like leaving, I order an Uber. And I had my David Goggins book with me. I order an Uber, and I'm waiting, and I swear to God, I'm thinking in my head, like, man, this trip was good and it was productive, but like, I felt like I would get more of a blessing or something like that. I'm thinking this in my head, right? And I swear to God, I'm having this conversation in my head, and I look over, and David Goggins is standing right next to me.
I thought you were going to say he was your Uber driver. That would have been
Yeah, I swear to God, he said, and I'll send you the photo so you can put the photo up.
Yeah.
And I talked to him, hey, we'd love to have you on the podcast, talk to this. We build a rapport, and I get in the Uber on the plane, and I'm taking off, and I'm like, oh my God, how did that has happened to me so many times. I just flew back from New York. You want to hear the New York Robert De Niro story? You guys are familiar with Robert De Niro, right? The actor?
For sure. Never heard of him.
Well, believe it or not, a lot of people in this generation don't know culture, but yeah, much respect. But long story short, I fly to New York. There's an actor by the name of Chaz Palminteri. He's from the film Bronx Tale, right? I mean, this guy, award-winning guy. Robert De Niro produced Bronx Tale It was Robert De Niro's first directorial debut, this film.
What a great movie too.
Oh, you seen it?
I loved it.
Dude, much respect. Hell yeah. So check this out. I just got back from New York. Crazy story. All right. So basically, I see that Chaz Palminteri from that film on his Instagram. I follow him on Instagram, and I see that Chaz has an acting class. And it's an open acting class at a studio. And I can't believe that this is just an open thing. So I sign up for the class. I have no connections, no clue, whatever, on a whim. Fly to New York. Class was in a couple days. On a whim, I fly to New York. I go to this acting class for like 3-4 days. And in the middle of the acting class, at the end of the first or second day, you know, I asked him, I said, you know, hey Chaz, you know, big fan of what you've done. You know, thank you for teaching in class. I was just wondering, I have a podcast and I would love to, you know, interview you on the show. Who would be the best person to send info to? And he goes, oh yeah, email my assistant and we'll set it up. But because I know I'm in the acting class, I'm gonna see him the next couple days. So I know that that's gonna create, maybe we shouldn't share this, but I know that that's gonna create a pressure to respond because I'm there. It's not just an inquiry in the inbox. You see what I'm saying? So it's a little like elegant hack. So, but I've done that in various forms. Please don't do that. Disclaimer, please don't do that. But you know, so long story short, I go to the thing, we do the interview. He goes, we can't film it at the studio. I asked the director at the studio, I said, hey, can we film it here? They said no. So I talked to Chaz and I said, hey Chaz, you know, we'd love to do the podcast with you. And keep in mind, I have no filmer, no videographer. I like studied acting on the flight there, right? Just follow the inspiration. So I'm in this acting class, and he goes, yeah, let's do it the last day of class. So after the last day of class, we end up shooting it. He goes, why don't we shoot it at my restaurant, Chaz Palminteri Steakhouse, right? Or Italian restaurant, Chaz Palminteri Restaurant. So he has 2 restaurants in New York. So we end up shooting it. They end up closing off an entire section of it. I randomly on Instagram post, I need a videographer. I randomly get people to hit me up. I meet this guy from New Jersey, drives an hour, like just wing this whole shoot. And literally like 4 days ago, I'd never been in touch with him. 4 days later, I was in a class with him, built rapport, got on the podcast. I'm in his restaurant and they closed on a whole wing of it. We ate it after. He got, you know, we developed a cool rapport. And he goes, hey, by the way, Bronx Tale's having its 30-year anniversary. Robert De Niro is going to be there and a couple people. I'd like to invite you as my guest. So invites me. I fly back to New York and I get to sit, you know, I get to sit in this amazing film. And some of the actors in the film are like sitting behind us and some are in front of us, you know. I'm just like, well, so I get to, you know, I have the pleasure of meeting Robert De Niro and Chaz there. And he was like, hey, when's that interview coming out, you know? And just to think that like, I went from being on a couch seeing something to like, less than 30 days later, I got a podcast coming out with them, invited to this thing, right? I don't say it to like impress. I say it to impress upon people that like, this is what's possible when you sort of follow the inspiration, you know? I feel like our inspiration is connected to our dreams.
That's such a gangster
Even if it
story.
doesn't make logical sense.
Yeah, you're just fluid the way you move. You know, like you're just like.
But a lot of I think it's being willing to look stupid and weird. Like even as I talk,
just figure it out.
I know people could be like, "Wow, that's really long-winded and that's odd. I should probably play it cool, right?" But I go, "F that. Life's short."
Yeah, for real. Yeah.
I had a feeling you guys were looking at me. I swear to God.
Oh man, that's like Malik 100%. But anyway.
No, sometimes that's the vibe. I get it. Sometimes it's just the energy.
If you're comfortable, bro.
I gotta
get
tell
it.
you something funny, you know, to like piggyback on that story. So like, I think it's hilarious because like I'm sure you get the question a lot of like, how do you meet these people? Like, you know, you've definitely met like a lot bigger names, but behind the scenes, I've met a lot of cool names too. And it's like, it's funny because I always just say like, I just ask.
At some level, yes.
Like it's literally just that. Like
how you do, what mediums.
Yeah. Like
it matters.
But like, and it's interesting how people are just
100%.
willing to help. Like for example, you know Darren Prince, right? Love Darren Prince. Shout out to you, man. Like seriously, like a super cool guy. So Darren Prince is Magic Johnson's agent, and he's had like a very successful career and stuff like that. So I got to know him through another mutual friend, and like I really liked the guy, and I was like, hey, let me sit down and interview. And we had a cool interview, super cool. He's talking about his story, and then randomly out of the blue, kind of like what the guy invited you over to the restaurant. Randomly out of the blue, he shoots me a text. He's like, hey man, my 50th birthday party's coming up. I want to invite you over, you know, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, like a couple other cool names are going to be there. You should come through. Just like, what the hell? I'm like, all right, sounds good. I was so out of place. I mean, I walk in there, I was like, all right, I'm gonna play it cool. I swear I saw every A-list that you can ever see, like on like the NBA roster. It was just just player after player after player after. It was like the Hall of Fame was there, you know? And that was such a unique thing because, like, once you're in that vicinity too, the energy changes because you're no longer like a fan. You're like, you're associated as an equal.
And at some level, yeah, and they give you advice. Like, dude, I just had dinner. This is crazy. I had dinner. I had dinner with the spouse of the CEO who like ran the company of a company that all of us have consumed the product. That's multi-billion-dollar thing. I'll give you a clue: burger and fries, and like that. All that took was a DM. Want to grab dinner? Would love to connect. Big fan of your stuff. Sure.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But most people are like, dude, oh my God, how do I work up these levels
Did
of
you
ascension,
figure it
right?
out?
Like,
What'd you do?
A lot of it is leverage. It's leverage. It's like, you just, it's how you move, And
you gotta catch them at the right time when you ask the question though that you ask.
Yeah, and get something, right? Like in a weird way, I'm probably saying stuff I shouldn't say, but just keep it real. Back in the day when I would smoke weed, if I needed some and someone didn't have it, I would say like, I would hit someone, I would say, hey, do you have any weed or whatever? And they'd be like, no. I'd be like, okay, cool. Instead of saying bye, I say, okay, well, do you know anybody who might have it? And he'd be like, yeah, try Tom. So I'd be like, all right. So I call Tom, and Tom says, no, do you know anybody? So I find the trail, and eventually I find someone and get the job done, right? So in micro ways, I learned that skill. Or I can go, no, okay, cool.
Thanks, and then move on.
That's what I'm going to do in sales. That's what I'm going to do in podcast. How you do one thing is how you do everything. So, I mean, it's a silly little story. But
I was literally doing that just yesterday. Because
wait.
Exposed.
Say it last.
No, I'm searching for syrup production companies, right?
Yeah.
And so I literally called up one, and they were like, "No, sorry, we don't offer that service." Oh, sick. Do you know who does offer that service? Oh, try these guys.
Right.
And I ended up bouncing from I literally bounced to maybe like 4 or 5 different companies who I would have never found on my own.
Right.
Right? Just because of that exact tactic.
Right.
And I think that touches upon like the importance of curiosity. Like you were saying, just ask questions. Just go out there and be curious. Because just that genuine curiosity that humans have, right? That a lot of us shy away from, just because it's like, oh, but I don't want to impose, or I don't want to disturb, or it's like, dude, you're curious, go get your answer, And I think that's really awesome what you were saying earlier about like, about mentors who are not just helpful, but they're willing. They're willing to go out of their way to see how they can help you and how they can benefit you. Once they see that you're genuinely curious and you genuinely want something, then they're going to be more than open to give it to you. Because they almost see as though like you become, in a sense, like their successor almost.
Yeah.
Like, let me pass down this knowledge, let me pass down this advice, and because of it, this person's going to grow. It's almost like you're now their child.
Plus, I think what people forget is like all these winners in life had a time where they struggled, right? Or at least for most, unless you were born into like wealth, right? But you had a time where like you came up and you struggled too. So like when they see you trying and like if you're ballsy and you're like willing to make moves, like for example, this guy going to meet Grant Cardone, like waiting, driving 2.5 hours to see if he can maybe get 5 minutes with the guy. Like I think that alone shows so much about like the energy that you're willing to put into the work. And when they see that, they're like, man, that's rare. I like that. I want that.
I've also found, I apologize for interjecting, I'm just so passionate about this.
No, go ahead.
Is I feel like I have never not gotten an ROI from taking a big risk like that in some capacity. Now, sometimes I got to be creative about how I see it, right, to justify it. But it's always there. Like at some level, something comes out of it, right? Like I'll give a crazy story to go back to the comedian story. For me, when I started my show, there's 3 like goals in life people I wanted to meet, and that was Paul Rodriguez, shout out Paul, rep A-Shock, the Nike shoe, and Tony Robbins, and Jerry Seinfeld, right? Maybe Howard Stern would be a 4th, but those guys drove me, and so I wanted to interview Joe Rogan. And I was trying to think, like, how could I interview Joe Rogan? But I had hit these home runs with big names. I'm like, who the heck am I to interview Joe Rogan? But I've learned that before they're this big person on social media, they're a human being that could stand in front of you and respond to a question, right? And like seeing that human lens before seeing the hoopla around the multiplication. Respond to the emotionally associate to the person, not to the hoopla. I find that's a great way to network with big name people. But long story short, I had no connections, no nothing. I got this inspired inspiration to interview Joe Rogan. I was like, how the heck am I going to meet him? I swear to God, crazy. I go on my phone the moment that weird inspiration came to me, and I check Joe Rogan's schedule. His last show in LA was that night. I go to buy 2 tickets, and it wouldn't let me. I was like, damn, I can't go. So then I was like, you know, there's a will, there's a way. So I was like, all right, let me try 1 ticket if I just went by myself. And I got the ticket. There was 1 ticket left. So I'm like, oh my God, this is like, in my head, I'm like, oh my God, this is like divine. You know what I mean? Like, this has to work. This is a layup. God's bases are loaded. God's given me, like, I had the inspiration for it, which is silly to hear that. And then it's silly to like check the phone. It's silly that the show's that night. And it's silly that there's only 1 ticket left. So I hop in an Uber and I go down there and this goes to the other thing, right? Remember I said, follow your divine inspiration, something will come of it. I swear to God, it's a true story. I go to the comedy club, and in my head, the whole time, I'm like, this is so stupid. Why do I keep doing this? What am I doing with my life, right? This is before things start working. Before I start making money with this guy. And so I'm in a doubtful, like I'm inspired, but I'm very like, I'm inspired, but like, how's the money gonna work? So long story short, I get to the comedy club, we go in, Joe Rogan comes up, and he performs, and in my head, I'm like, now I got to do something, right? Like, how am I going to interact with Joe Rogan, right? Like, keep in mind, like, I'm levels into like, this is stupid. What am I doing? So I take the edge off, and I'm like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? So I go, okay, like, you can't control anything in life. You can only maximize the odds. I go, okay, I can't be in the room when he's there. I can't be in the bathroom. That's weird. Hallway. Everyone's going to ask for his autograph. So I'm like, thinking, how am I gonna? So then I just think to myself, where's the easiest place to anchor myself so that I'm naturally in the way? So I check the like exits, and I realize that he's gonna exit through this hallway. So I wait at the end of the hallway before the door. So before you go outside, but like right when you get in. You get what I mean? So if there's hoopla, I'm the last before they're gonna stall to open the door. That would be my moment, you know? Silly, but the fact that I even mentally was thinking like and acting on it on a
it's some strategy.
When 2 hours before I was like sitting at home like on Instagram, like seeing if the girl I like checked my story or something, you know, like just keep it human, right? We've never been there. No, never. You know, like just random. So yeah, dude. So I go and I'm waiting by the exit, and I think this is my moment. Joe Rogan comes by, but there's like security all around him, like bodyguards all around him. Gets out to a car, gets in the car, dips. So I don't talk to Joe Rogan, right? So I'm in my head, I'm like, I did all this, and I went here, and I spent money on the ticket, and I don't have money, and I'm in LA, but what am I doing? What am I drinking? Like, I'm just like, I'm kind of like frustrated, but I'm sitting at the exit playing it cool, because there's a bunch of comedians that go up on comedy nights. And I swear to God, I'm standing, are you guys familiar with Jerry Seinfeld?
Yeah.
Right? This is the highest grossing comedian of all time.
Never heard of him.
Show. And literally I'm standing there after Rogan passed, pissed, worried about all this. And after the hoopla leaves, and I'm still staying there trying to figure out what I'm going to do. The door opens, Jerry Seinfeld walks in through that exit. And it's just me and Jerry Seinfeld. And I'm like, oh my God. And he's not going up for a couple minutes. So he's kind of like hiding by the exit. No one's there. So it's literally me and Jerry Seinfeld. And I'm like seeing every episode. And he's standing right here in front of me. He's not on his phone. And we're talking back and forth. And everything in me was like, ask about the podcast. Just F it. Ask about the podcast. But I couldn't get it. I just couldn't. I was trying to find the moment, but I was also trying to tread politely. So I didn't get it. We talked. And then he gave me some good life advice. And then I like shook his hand, said, nice to meet you. And I was like, first when he came in, I was just like frozen. He goes, yeah. He goes, I'm Jerry Seinfeld.
He just knew. He's like, yeah.
Yeah, he just knew. He was like, yep. And then, so I shook his hand. We were like joking around. And again, I couldn't get it out of me. So I shook hands with him. And then I said, dude, if you don't mind, I'm so sorry to ask. Can I get a photo? And he goes, no thanks, but nice meeting you though. and I just like, okay, and like shook his hand, and he like walked away, and I just sat there, and I was like, you know. So it's crazy and it's weird. And
I'll never forget that, dude.
But like it got me to meet one of my heroes and shake his hand.
Yeah.
So it was worth it. And who knows? Maybe I'll interview him around the corner. I'll tell him the story and that because right, like so having the long-term awareness of how stuff like that might ROI. But
didn't I pick you up that night?
I
think I picked you up that night.
Yeah.
You took an Uber there, and then I came and picked you up because he calls me right after. He's like, "Bro, you won't believe what the hell just went down."
Yeah, I Ubered. Yeah. And I have no photo, so like people would be like, "Oh, he's lying." Yeah. There's a photo of me in the club like this, like after he walked away, like with his side, and I tried to take it, but I'm like, you know. But it was so crazy, and I got to see him perform live, and it was unbelievable. And he dropped in. It was a surprise drop in. He only does that because if he announces he's going to be there, it'll be a hoopla.
Whole crowd.
Yeah. So it's crazy.
So what made you kind of hesitate from asking him to be on the pod?
I like to think I'm pretty good at
filling out the vibe.
Yeah.
Not feeling like a used car salesman?
At a certain level, especially at that level. When you're elite like that, everyone and their mom wants something.
Something from you.
Yeah.
Something, So I felt, I was just feeling it out, you know, I'm not going to take it. Because then if you get, he'll be like, oh, someone wants it, you know, dismissal. So I was like, oh. So it was just that. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes, and I was keep in mind, I wasn't prepared. That's another thing. That taught me to always be prepared. I learned that lesson. I mean, you talk about on smaller names. I wish I learned that lesson on a smaller name, but unfortunately, I learned the lesson to ask with the biggest comedian in the history of mankind. So, you know, I'll take it on the chin. You know,
for sure,
it happens.
And I think him especially, he's that type of person where he is so over just the cliche around being an A-lister,
right?
That he really has no censorship to tell someone to F off. So like so definitely wouldn't be easy to get something out of him.
Yeah, but I have another funny story about that. I won't say what, but I snuck into a big studio lot because after that I was like, I gotta get Seinfeld. I don't want to say certain stuff, but let's just say I found out an event, a nonprofit organization, and if anybody ever wants to network with high-level individuals, the best place you can do it, big secret, is fundraisers in Beverly Hills. Everyone you could ever want is there. They're publicly open.
It's like genius.
Big genius.
But see, most people hear that and be like, "Oh, that's genius," and then they'll eat a pizza and like life will go on and they'll never.
Damn, I was about to say hop slice, bro.
No. But I mean, the genius is not in the awareness. The genius is in the action.
The action, 100%.
You know? But yeah.
Dude, that's hilarious, man. Yeah, you've had a lot of crazy stories, and like seeing you grow. Like, and by the way, he does this like with money too. If you don't mind me like throwing a couple examples out. So he'll have like times where he wants to try new things, right? And you know, no matter how much money you make, you're spending and reinvesting and growing and, you know, doing what you got to do to keep the business rolling. But he'd be like, oh, you know, this is gonna pay off. This is not. He'll call me randomly. He's like, hey, bro, you down to drop like 15 grand, 20 grand and go here? And I'll just be like, no, I'm good. Like, I'm always staying back. And he's always like just trying this, going to this mastermind, networking with this guy, doing this. So he's always done that, you know? And I feel like in the sheer volume of just doing those actions, you kind of like, you get a couple wins and it just kind of like takes off for you.
Yeah, I mean, and that's not the way I recommend everybody. I probably swing a little wild in the sense that I've never been the type of growth by discipline, if that makes sense. Meaning like if it's easier for me to work out if I'm entering a bodybuilding contest in 9 months, or I make like a $10,000 deal with someone about that or something in the future. Like, there has to be something compelling about it, more so than the act of it. It's a weird thing sometimes.
So,
but yeah,
you said you don't believe in growth by discipline.
For me, I believe in growth through discipline. I believe that it works, right? I'm just saying, I believe that I have. While that's one way to grow, I believe there are many ways to grow. And another one is through leveraging your sort of strengths. So like, for example, for me, like, I'm the type who like, something compelling at the end of it motivates the discipline. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So you're not doing it for discipline's sake. You're doing it, like, for example, if I said, hey, work out for the next 12 months to the best of your guys' ability. Eat the best, be the best, right? Now I want you to walk through and imagine that, how you would define that, give or take in your mind's eye of a video 5 seconds long. of what that montage would look like. Your absolute best self over the next 12 months. You couldn't do any better, right? Now compare that to if I told you, hey, no matter what, someone says, Wallah al-Azim, you have to fight Conor McGregor in 12 months and 100 million people are going to see it. Did the level of capacity, of intensity, of how much you can work out, how much more you can, just not immediately exist? Mm-hmm. A new level of capability exists in your mind's eye because of the pressure of what's at the end of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you'd probably, so for example, if you're trying to be healthy for 12 months and you see a Snickers, you'll go, maybe. But if you're fighting Conor McGregor in 12 months, you're like, dude, get that Snickers away from me. I can't. You know what I mean? Like so I'm the type like that, right? I'm the type like, they say it's easier to fast than it is to diet, right? Because it's clear, black and white, boom. You know, it's not the ebb and flow. So for me, I dominantly work that way. But I definitely believe 100% discipline is growth. I just believe there's other ways of growth that people should capitalize on if they have it. Yeah.
That's hilarious, man. Yeah.
I like that a lot, actually.
Yeah, it's been cool. Like, I think also like
someone asked one time, I know we talked about this, like I asked this guy, this is where it started, to your point real quick, is like, I asked, I had a friend in real estate and he was always, you know, at this time I'm making maybe $5,000 or $7,000 a month, I can't even imagine how people make $10,000 and $20,000 a month. What is that? And I asked him, I said, dude, what's your best advice to raise your income, right? And he told me, he told me, go get a car that you love that you can barely afford. And I was like, what? And he was like, yeah, dude, then you won't have a choice, you know? So I was like, okay. And I started doing that. And so then I'd go to the Ritz instead of, you know, stupid. And I'm not saying every time, but I would go taste it once. I would go this once, you know, just to feel what it's like, because then it starts to train your mind. It gives your mind compelling reasons of why to make the money, not to, right? Even a couple years ago, you know, I like to donate and contribute, and I funded 2 house builds in Mexico. I built homes for families from Mexico, and that was a pretty large check for 2 homes. But I committed to that when I went to a house build, had no idea how I could fund it, but I witnessed it, and I said, hey, next year, I just want to let you know I'm pledging now, I'll sign whatever, I'm going to donate next year. So I gave myself 12, and so now earning that money to do that wasn't, to have a sick this or that. It's not. It's a compelling reason. Oh, it's to feed the homes in Mexico. So now it's not, I want to eat. Like now I'm thinking about the kids eating and having shelter. So that's what's happening before the sales call. That's what's happening in the morning. So there's a level of urgency and intensity that you don't need to discipline yourself. The action's on tap when it's clear like that. That vision automates the discipline versus like, I want to make that extra money for the sake of discipline. You know, for me at least, the compelling things. And so we ended up building the houses, and so you just do that at new levels.
Yeah, they say like when a man is completely different when he has to pull it off.
Yeah.
It's completely different. Like when you have literally no choice. Like if you don't pull it off, you're literally screwed.
And how quick, and your ability to self-pressure, which is weird because most people try to avoid pressure, but people who succeed at the highest levels of anything actually seek it.
They look for it.
Yeah, I know how to pace it. I'm not saying recklessly, but like the highest levels of anything are pressure. The highest relationship is when you guys have had so much pressure, but you still stay together. You still find a way to relieve it, right? Fitness, right?
Plus things change, man. Like give an example. Like let's say like in regards to the car. Let's say you get a car that's what, $2,000 a month, right? I know that sounds nuts, but you work like at a regular retail shop, you make maybe $4,000, $5,000 a month, right? Not that I'm saying y'all should do this, right? Keep in mind too, I think a lot of people are mistaken. There's one thing to do that and not have a plan, and another thing to do it knowing you have resources to be able to accomplish something.
And I don't think most people should do it. I'm not advocating people to do this, by the way. I'm just saying, unfortunately, I'm the artist who.
Yeah. But it's like
I couldn't do it the disciplined way, so I found a back door.
It's like, for example, if I'm running a business and I know this business has the ability to make like, you know, X amount of dollars, like $1 million, $2 million, $5 million, $10 million. I know if I just work at it, I can get there. And let's say I'm at $100,000 a year, $200,000 a year, $300,000 a year, right? It's maybe a little bit reckless to like go get a high car payment, sure. But A, I love cars. B, what's interesting too is when you upgrade your car, man, the people treat you differently. Right? And that was such a huge like, whoa, I was just like, and I only experienced it when we took out the Ferrari and the Lambo. That's like when we rented those two, just everybody was just willing to give. And I'm just like, the heck? Like, and then like we'd go to random hotels, the most richest dudes, hey man, yeah, what do you guys do, blah, blah, blah. It would create the coolest conversations. And I'm like, man, if I was in this energy all day, every day, I'd be making millions.
Yeah, compared to spending $2,000 on Facebook ads that didn't ROI.
Yeah, yeah.
Or you know, you're gonna spend that money on dinner, you know, like I kind of started thinking
People
about
spend that money on
from a bigger
alcohol on like
perspective.
weekends, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like most people literally probably spend at least $1,000 a month on stuff that's like whatever. Like imagine if you just like had something that levels you up to a new environment. Like I had my S class in my 20s. Everyone else who has S classes was in their 40s, 50s, 60s, CEOs, everything. So instantly, I'm in my 20s. So I had access to all of them when I'm at Mercedes at the service, or when there's events with Mercedes, or I see someone else with an S class, opens the door, and guess who all those people are? CEOs, CMOs, COOs. So it justifies the investment, you know?
I mean, I'll give you a legitimate example. Like when I started my agency, the PR agency that I was running, remember the podcast stuff I used to do? You know, I think I hit my first $30K month. Yeah, and I was doing 30 to 40K a month consistently for like 3-4 months. So I was like, okay, cool. There's like momentum here, right? And like, I'm like, at the time I was driving a Camry. Remember I had it like a Toyota, so I love the car. Yeah. But I was like, you know what? I want to get something badass. You know, and when I looked at the Range Rover SVRs, it's like $130,000. I mean, I went from a Camry that was like 36K to like dropping 100 racks more. And I walk in, and I swear to God, this is exactly how the whole conversation went. I go in, and dealer, how much is this? We talk. He goes, oh, I give it to you for $1,550. We negotiated, ended up like, you know, getting to $1,450, and I was like, no down, nothing. And I thought of it, I'm like, I'm making 30 grand a month. Like, sure, maybe like this is not the smartest investment. But what the hell is 1,200 out of that 30? You know, and like, what is it gonna give me? You know, because I love cars, so it's gonna really open up a lot of things. So I got it. And what's interesting is, I had a client of mine at the time who was doing like podcast booking, who drove an Aston Martin. He saw the car that I got. He's like, yo, this is sick. I gotta introduce you to my homies who are also into these kind of cars. And so I got introduced to this guy, and he was a CEO of like a multi-billion-dollar pharma company. And I was like, oh shoot, this guy ends up paying me $50,000 to book him on podcasts. So now all of a sudden this like $1,250 per month investment just made me like a 6-figure check plus, and it probably created so many more opportunities, right?
That happened to me too. A guy I know, I connected with him because he had the same car as me. He referred me to a guy, and that ended up being like 120,000 in business from that one client. Yeah,
but I think the key is to have a vehicle. Like, don't do like everybody watching this. Like, don't. No,
this is an entrepreneur having momentum. Like,
Like, don't do that if you have no plan to actually make any money, because that's a stupid debt. But like, if you have like an actual like, you know, game plan and you're working at it and you're not making that much yet, I 100%, and I still do it to this day. Like, I probably once realistically, like if you're gonna put 10 grand a month into a car, you should be making how much? Like probably like
at least 10x, ideally.
Probably like that's way low. I would say like probably 400,000 or 500,000 a month in the minimum as a business. I'd probably, knowing me, justify it at like 450, 400, like a little lower than like what it should be, because I want that, like I like it. You know, another thing too, not a lot of people can survive that pressure. So like if you're the type that kind of flops when you're under pressure, don't do it. You know, but it's interesting because like I come off and I'm sure I've seen this guy do certain things too, and like I'm sure you guys too in business, where like you're under pressure, like it brings out a side of you that like, I have to figure this out, like I said earlier, and you start to do things that you weren't thinking of before. You know? Yeah.
So the climax of the human experience is the resolution of pressure. So let me unpack that for Omar. We got a buddy off camera. We always joke around. But what I mean is that pressure. I love that you said pressure. I think the more pressure you put yourself through in intentional areas, the better. And if you think about it, nothing in this world happens without a certain amount of tension or pressure, right? Think about what makes you want to eat, right? A certain amount of tension and pressure in the stomach. What makes someone want to make love? A certain amount of tension and pressure. What makes someone release or climax in intimacy, right? A certain amount of release of tension and pressure. So pressure is a catalyst for change, always. And so if you spend your whole life avoiding pressure, or a dominant portion of it avoiding pressure, you live a very limited life. But seeking pressure and poking to the other side of it, that is the dream.
What was the thing you started by saying? What was that, like almost like a quote? You said
the climax, that's about resolution.
yeah.
Yeah, like I forget what it was exactly, but I was just saying that basically the more pressure you're willing to get through, like the resolution of pressure is the climax of growth. Like that is growth right there. Like something occurred that was really and you breathed through it and got to the other side of it.
Yeah.
You said something interesting though too. Is like successful people seek pressure. I was reading I brought it up before. I love this book.
It's like big business, big muscles, heavier weights. You just lift them, and you're calmer lifting them.
You've read Principles by Ray Dalio, right? I'm sure.
Of course.
Yeah.
So didn't finish it, but read it. Yes.
Such a good book.
Yeah.
So he talks about that too, like like pressure creates diamonds type of thing. Like seek it, actually look for it. And it's funny because like I'll do things in my business, like for example, say like we're profiting a lot and like things are going well. I'm like, I'll go. How can I completely F this up? And so, like, I don't think the past, like, 5 years I've ever had, like, a month where I've chilled. Like, we will hang out all the time. Like, we'd call each other up all the time just, like, really stressed. We're like, hey, man, like, this is, like, too crazy. Like, we got to hang out and, like, talk shit and, like, let's have some fun, And it's funny, though, but like, I'll literally go, I'm making too much right now, like, profit, which is great. Good to be there. But I'm not where I want to be. Plus, it gets boring. Like, I don't know about you, but it just gets boring. It gets redundant. Like, oh, okay, wake up, no growth, nice, cool. Yeah, sure, I'm making good money, that's awesome. But, like, what about if I can do more? And I end up launching something else. Like, I just recently did it. I got out of the agency world. I got into the cybersecurity space, figured all that out. Things are growing, and I'm like, what else can I do? So I launched a marketing program for cybersecurity companies recently, because I wanted more pressure. I needed, like, we had some cash. I was like, I want to put it invested in. And it's funny because in the book Principles, he has like a drawing that goes like this, right? And he talks about how like you start, you go under pressure, you fail, you reconstruct, reorganize, replan, and then keep strategizing and keep going. And every time you go through that flow, you're actually elevating. Right? And so it's interesting, if I look at my past 5 years, I go, yeah, sure, every single time I was like chill, I added pressure, but every single time I went through that time of pressure, I came out on the other side, wealthier, had a bigger business, more successful, things were going better, and it just continue. I feel like you just continue to play that. Whoever's able to like really last that game as far and as long as possible, that's like the most simplistic way to like kind of succeed.
Yeah, I think too, it's like how you define success, and it's so generic. My least favorite thing in the world is generic statements, but yeah, like how you define success, because I find that people are generally, in my opinion, in my personal experience in seeing it, people are happier when they enjoy doing the thing than the reward of the thing. And again, it's rooted in the pro skater me, right? Little kid me. Like, I always loved, for example, with skaters, how like, it's crazy, but like, let's say, like my dream when I was a kid was to be a pro skater, because I could fulfill so many needs in one shot, right? Like, I could skate, I could travel with my friends, I could hang out, I could be productive, I could get paid, I could travel the world, I could design a signature product, right? And so in one, I have a business, I have a fitness plan, it's social, vertically integrated. But in life, it's like there's all these compartmentalized things. So I think people need to find a rhythm of life where they're knocking out a lot of dominoes efficiently with their routine of life. I think that is a better definition of success than like X number, Because you could have 3 different people, each have $100 million. They each have a totally different emotional
fulfillment.
Exactly. They all have a totally different emotional experience. So I'm after the higher quality emotional experience, whatever the numbers in the bank account. God doesn't care. Like, God's not gonna be like, hey, how much you got in your checkings? So for me to have an ego
depends on what bank we're talking about,
right? So. Yeah, I mean, maybe in good deeds, but not a Chase.
Bank of America.
So it's just, I think, like, as silly as that sounds, like, just knowing that, because then how you define success or feeling good is different than suffer now, and when I have this in the bank, then I'll be successful.
It's funny because you mentioned the example of like a pro skater, and it made me kind of like think of the visual of when, for example, a pro skater, does he celebrate more when he lands a really impossible trick, or does he celebrate more when he's getting handed the trophy?
The trick.
The trick. 100%. Because he's like, it's like something he's been practicing hours after hours after, and when he finally lands it, it's just like, it's this phenomenal burst of like endorphins, and he's just like, holy smokes, that was crazy. And then the visual of him accepting the trophy is just, yeah.
Exactly.
And then that's it.
Icing on the cake. Icing on the cake.
I watched the documentary by Tony Hawk on Netflix, and it was so freaking sick. But part of it was him first, like, thinking of the 900.
Yes.
And then working towards it, and falling, and just, it's showing very graphic falls.
Yes.
Like he's getting his butt beat.
Yes.
And then he finally lands it. Yes. And then fast forward to the X Games, he lands it on national television for the first time. And everyone just goes crazy. And I think they gave him like a decent amount of tries too.
Right,
the whole, now everyone's like, yo, we want to see this.
I think it was outside of his. Run too. Like the time was up.
Yes.
The audience was hyped.
Yep.
So they just like broke format of the contest and just let him, because he was so close to the trick.
Yes.
So they just let him keep trying.
They're like, run it.
Cheering. Yeah, like ESPN
Oh, really?
just like switched up. Yeah, because they know such a gnarly trick. Actually, it's funny you say this, bro. I just got a Tony Hawk board delivered and signed. I'll send you photos. You can put it up. It's Tony Hawk delivered and signed. Tony Hawk with photos of the 900. So funny that we're talking about it. Just delivered today.
That's so sick.
But yeah, it's crazy, man, that the ESPN did that. But yeah, it's a personal fulfillment. That's the best part of it. And then, yeah, it's. I could go deep on that one. But.
No, funny enough, the episode of this podcast that just came out this morning, we had another buddy of his on as the guest, and one of the things that he was explaining, which was very, very profound, was same thing, the idea of fulfillment because you're doing something that's like productive, rather than cheap fulfillment, which is what we get from like social media, Netflix, and just kind of like the distractions. Sure, it's going to release endorphins and get you excited and like get you distracted. But when you're genuinely doing something, it's operating, you're working with your hands, you're thinking things out, and you're actually productive, that also has the ability to, release those same endorphins. And that's something you should be chasing, because you don't only get the fulfillment aspect, but now you're being productive.
Right. Success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. Success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. To have success but no fulfillment. There's a beautiful quote. It says, if you gain the world but lose your soul, what have you really done? Mm-hmm. If you're deep, if you chase and get the thing and the thing and the thing and the thing, it's like, okay, what do you really want? Like, how often do most people like look at the sky, don't look at their phone, and literally just ponder that question? Mm-hmm. And I find that most people who end up living their dream are the ones who thought about it more, and because they thought about it more, they talked about it more, and because they talked about it more, they acted on it more, and because they acted on it more, it became real.
So with that being said, what do you envision old age being like for you?
Oh, it's funny you say that. So I learned this concept too. As you can tell, I've thought a lot about this stuff. I heard this beautiful expression. It says, we all move towards the image we hold in our mind most, right? We all move towards the image we hold in our mind most. And I think most people, I would bet that most people nowadays, like when you say like, how do you see yourself when you're 80 or 90? Autopilot, not your like politically correct, ideal, motivational self, right? Like in truth, like in your heart of hearts, how you intuitively see it. I would bet most people see themselves, maybe back a little stiff, needing help, right? But the reality is, I just interviewed somebody who, her name is Sister Madonna. She's actually a triathlete. She's in her 90s. And she talks about like, she didn't start running until a few years ago, maybe semi-recent, relatively speaking to her age. And she was able to like get in phenomenal shape, at her older age. And I asked her, I said, how do you do that? And she said, it's because like, most people imagine themselves assuming life has to be on a decline, but it can just be up and up and up and up and up until you die and go to heaven. And it was always going up the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
That's gangster.
That's so gangster. I love that.
So
that's funny, awesome.
So I asked this question very vaguely because we were just having this discussion right before we started. And, we were talking about like, basically the Jum'ah khutbah today at Masjid Farouk was about, the guy started off by explaining the whole idea about how people will die and then they will be begging Allah, like, take me back, let me live for a few more moments so I can do more, so I can worship more, so I can
right my wrongs.
Right my wrongs, absolutely. And moments before the khutbah started, a homie's dad sat behind me And I turned around and I gave him salam. And then it was like, oh, assalamu alaikum, assalamu alaikum. And then I was just like, out of respect, it was just a casual, how are you doing? And then he was like, good, alhamdulillah. So then I just turn around and go back to do my thing. And then there was a pause. And then he goes, just aging. And I was like, okay. He goes, it just keeps going. And it kind of bounces to this, this traditional thought that most people have where it's like, life just goes on and it has to be difficult.
Right.
And you have to hate it the entire way through. And then when you get old, it gets worse. And it was really funny because that's what he said, right? He just said that moments before the khutbah, and the khutbah starts by the khatib saying, people will die after all of their age and they'll be like, I wish to go back. Where it's almost like a moment ago, he was wishing for it to be over with already.
Sure, yeah.
And so it really made me realize, and then he was explaining his, the opposite side where it's like, he's achieved success in the world, he's got the house, he's got his family, this is that. So for him, it's like, what else is there? I was like, dude, when I'm at that age, I'm gonna be flipping shredded. You know what I mean? Yeah. When I'm at that age, I'm still gonna be playing rugby, flipping, tackling people. Like, I want that age to be a completely different image from what everybody else expects.
Yeah, and I think it goes to speak that to like, I think it's dangerous to dream about having things that are fixed in place rather than a rhythm. The dream should be a rhythm, not not 100 million in the bank, living here.
Expand on it.
It should be a rhythm. Like for me, like
you're always ascending, like you said.
Well, like a rhythm, like a rhythm. Like to me, in my twisted mind, like this, I'm a weirdo. But like in my dream, I wanted to be a pro skater, right? And I didn't end up going pro for a lot of reasons. But I went on tour and I got to do some cool stuff. But long story short, I didn't go all the way. And so when I was in that process or in that time, like I learned how to like work and play. Like, how earlier you were talking about how I work and play. I learned that because if you assume, like to your point, if you assume life is an uphill battle, you'll see the uphill battles, right? Like I could have, when the Grand Cardone thing happened, been like, oh my God, I gotta drive 2.5 hours, this is stupid. I'll just email on Monday. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, which is what everyone does, and no one, you know what I mean? So it's like that little push I find that's where the magic happens,
I love that. I love what you said though. Ascension, so you get to heaven. You're always ascending from day one.
Yeah, you just ascend to get to heaven.
Yeah,
in a
that's
different
so
form,
sick.
through
That's
more
like
maturity.
such a cool perspective to view life.
Yeah, exactly. But see, if no one ever says it, you can never imagine it. We move toward. The problem is that most people don't aim too high and miss. It's they aim too low and hit.
They aim too low and hit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't make that up, but I heard it, and I think it's totally true. It's like most people. Haven't you found it funny that everyone somehow manages to pay all their bills and barely have a little bit left? Right. How random is it? It's because they made it a mission in their mind to at least pay the bills. Mm-hmm. So whatever you most dominantly think about, like there was times I remember with this guy, we talk about making X amount a month, whatever, 6 figures in the business a month. To me, that was delusional. But literally talking about it so much, thinking about it so much, joking about it so much.
You eventually did it.
Yeah, fake screenshots. Remember? I'd
Bro,
like
you made this guy's pulled in 100 grand in a day. I think that was hilarious. We had what is it? December 2021 or is it 2020? No, 2021. We had a competition in who can make more money. Because our whole thing was I had a system, I had a team, I had sales coming in every single day.
This is friendly business.
This is friendly like competition, right? And for him, he was like, watch, bro, I'm gonna do half your work and do twice as much as you make. And I was like, no, you're not. And it's funny because I think we came like super close. Like that month, like I made like 180 or something, and you made like 100, like I think 210. You did like 210 or 220, and it was hilarious because he was behind me. Like last week of December, I was ahead of him by like 100 grand. So I was like, bro, I'm chilling. I won this game. Bro, this guy out of nowhere, 24 hours later, sends me a wire transfer screenshot of $100,000. I'm like, what the hell did you do?
Pressure. Remember I told you pressure?
Yeah.
I like those games.
We create that a lot. Like we do that. That's probably one of the reasons why we hang out a lot too. Is
probably not healthy though. It's fun. I'm also aware. Like I'm self-aware enough to know that can only go on so long before taking a toll. But When you're young, you can get away with it. You know.
I feel like you keep playing it, and then like you also kind of have some fun in the
You
middle.
build systems and teams.
You build systems
yeah.
and teams. Like now, it's interesting because like the way I run my business, I'm in this like rhythm, like you said, of
Yeah.
I get it, I've done it, like I can keep growing, and it's just moving.
Yeah,
but
like-
it never ends because the number is all. Because if you have like an end goal, it's like you kind of.
Dude.
That's not the.
Win
That's
the day, win your life.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't even think about big.
One
like,
by
have
one,
big
one by
visions.
one.
Yeah. One day at
Day
a
by
time.
day,
5
yeah.
prayers. Okay, today just 5 prayers. Get a workout in. Make a couple calls. Cool. That's good enough. That's good enough to live your wildest dreams. Literally.
Yeah.
How
Win the
far
day,
you
win
go
your
has
life,
more to do
yep.
with consistency than intensity. That's why you'll meet people who live in these crazy things and run huge businesses, and you're like, you're not that smart. But what they were is stubborn enough to be consistent longer than you. So like, just know in your mind, like, oh, I'm going to be working no matter what for the next 10 years. You just accept that in advance, and then now you play to your skill sets. Even just that simple thing, you now see the game in a winnable way.
But you got to be ballsy to make jumps, Dan. You have
Yeah,
to.
at your
You
own
have to.
pace,
Like if you
at your
don't,
own
if you don't,
pace,
if you don't
yeah.
have that in you, like it's not gonna grow. Because like I've met so many business owners.
Or have
who,
a
like,
partner that does.
Sure.
A
Yeah.
business
Well, you
partner.
have to. The business has to have somebody that's like able to like, hey, okay, we're at 100,000 a month. To get to $1 million a month, we need to do all these moves, and we're gonna probably like lose a lot of money on the way. But here's how we're gonna do it, and let's go do it, right? If you don't play that game, you're not really gonna grow. I've seen so many people who've had businesses for 2 decades, and they probably make less than $1 million a year. Right? They worked their asses off 2 decades, 20 years, nonstop, but they didn't grow. And it's interesting because my philosophy has always been like, in a sense of like, this is something like I was taught by like a lot of my mentors, was like you said, you're already gonna put the time.
Yeah, you're gonna die anyways.
Yeah, you're gonna die.
Like-
You're gonna put in the time. I'm working just as hard as you are. So is it really risky if I take the bigger jump and make it versus you not making it? Like, you know what I mean? Is it really a risk, or are you the one risking more than I?
Elon Musk runs SpaceX, Tesla, Solar City at the time, right? Like runs all these companies in the same 24 hours that all of us are having a hard time getting some work and going to the gym in. Right? Like, you know, even if he
hilarious,
has teams
yeah.
away, we're like,
It's
yeah, dude,
hilarious.
it's going to be tricky to make it tonight, bro. I already drove 15 minutes. Can you, you know, or I already passed that direction going back. Can you imagine the capacity these guys have? But it's in the same 24 hours that we all have. You know, and it's playing to your strength, right? And it's about, I think it's literally, you have your whole life to just leverage, figure out how to leverage what you like, what you enjoy, or what you're willing to work at. Even if it sucks, you just have to have a team. You just have to get it done. But the more you can build that leverage and a system, a machine that can handle pressure, think of building machines that can handle pressure. And if you do that physically, mentally in your business, you'll reap what you sow.
Yeah, I'm gonna make sure to always have fun. This guy taught me, it's funny.
Well, so it's sustainable.
It's you gotta
If you're
have
so
fun.
stiff,
I used to be like the other side. I used to be like nonstop, go all the time, and sure, I got somewhere, but I burnt out. I burnt out heavy, and I lost a lot of money because I burnt out heavy, right? And so like definitely now, like, and I only learned this year. This year, like I walk into things and I'm like, all right, cool. I got the confidence. I know I'm gonna do it. The skills are there. We're gonna get there, right? Might as well, as I'm going through this crazy pressure of a process, enjoy it. You know, like live it up. And it's funny because when you come off like that, it's weird. I talk to prospects. I go on lunches. People want to do business with you more because you're fun. You're like, you're different. Like I get it all the time now. It's like, dude, you know what, man? Like the guy, like that last guy, I was talking to this other guy, man, what a sales guy, what a sales weirdo. Like I like talking to you, let's just do business here, you know? And it's funny because now when I go on like business meetings, I do less work and less talking. It's weird, like you kind of do less when you get into this momentum of just figuring it out. Like I go to a
Things come
sales.
to you. Things
Yeah,
come.
yeah,
The highest position in life, right? My homie, I know I keep saying it, P-Rod with Nike, 10 shoes on Nike, right? Nike came to him. You know what I'm saying? Like Jordan, Nike came to him. He didn't go there. He came to them. So the goal in life, I think, is to make the universe, the world, whatever, is to be, success is not something you pursue. What you pursue will elude you. Success is something that you attract by the person you become. It's about who you attract. Do you want a relationship?
Yes.
Do you want a relationship that
Yes.
you have to fight and push and this and that? Or do you want something that attracted to your level of energy, where you attracted to them, they attracted to you? Do you want a business partner? Do you want customers that you have to fight and still? No, you want people who are attracted to what you're doing. So it's about building that. And sometimes when you focus on revenue or a six-pack or this person's aesthetic, you miss the point. It's surface level, right? So I think just having that awareness, you look at life totally different. You know what I mean?
Plus, it's fun when you do see it that way.
Yeah, and the point is
When
to
it
live the
starts to
dream.
move like that,
Dude, the point
it's
is to
lit.
live the dream. When we were all
Yeah,
kids,
yeah,
did we go, yeah, dude, my dream is to be an entrepreneur, wake up at 5 a.m. and work all day for 10 years straight. No, that's not the dream. That's not the dream. Live the dream. Live the dream. Honor the 12-year-old in you. You know, I'm such a big proponent. Honor the 12-year-old in you. That would be, you know, that's why even now, like the 12-year-old in me would be like, dude, you have this in your bank. Go get that car. Like go do this thing, or go fly here. Or go, you know, obviously within reason. But I think if you don't honor that fun voice, it's not just going to show up.
That's the part of don't take life too seriously.
No, feel good. For me, feel
shouldn't.
good.
Really.
Do things you enjoy. Go to heaven with your wife and your kids. That my ultimate goal in life is to go to heaven with my wife and kids. Everything else is icing on the cake. So I have that anchored in my mind. So everything else is I'm just going to tap dance as much as I can through the trials and tribulations. I'm going to joke around it because none of it really matters anyway. You do your best. You help people. You know, for me, I believe in God, I'm a man of faith. So I want to go to heaven with my wife and kids. As long as that happens with my family and loved ones, or I believe I optimize, right all my wrongs, and move in that direction, I'm good.
Yeah.
So it takes the edge off of like revenue this month.
Plus, I
You
think
see what I'm saying?
when you tap into that energy, something interesting happens. You start to tap into your natural God-given reason to living. Like God didn't create you so you could work your butt off and you know, barely make your bills every month.
Human beings, not human doings.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We're human beings, not human doings. We were made to, like, by the essence, you know, from a religious standpoint, to worship, but also like to build a closer relationship to God. That's really all it is. Like at the end of the day, and like you said, top of the goal is heaven with children and family and everybody, and everything else is an icing on top of it. So like when you see it that way, you don't take it too seriously. So you're kind of like, what I do take serious is make sure I get to that like area that I want to get to. But everything outside of that is just, it's extra. It's like, and so like you should, this is where like, I was again watching this like really, I gotta send it to you, man, off camera, but super cool video. He was talking about how like, this is how you become really grateful, is you recognize that to be the truth. And you recognize that you have all the tools in your box to actually go out there and make everything you want happen, to literally anything. Like you can take over the world if you want to, like it's literally anything, right? And so you start by just being grateful for what you got now, and then building upon it and working, and don't take it too seriously, step by step, momentum, day by day. 10 years, 15 years, 20 years down the line, you're going to have something.
You know? Yeah, it's hard to relax for people though. Even for me. It's like, I think that's where most people struggle to implement that. Because it's true what you're saying, but it's hard to not live in urgency. Like I also know that like 99.9% of people who are financially stressed can't see certain things because it creates such a blinding pressure sometimes. Someone told me this one time, I'll never forget it. Andy from Afters, the founder of, one of my buddies founded a shop called Afters Ice Cream. And it's crazy. They've done like 50 million in revenue. It's wild what they've done with a donut and some ice cream. But he told me that when you build your savings, it builds your mindset too. And he said, because your ideas will never exceed your bank balance. You know, your ideas will never exceed your income. So if you're struggling, you're only going to see $150 ideas, $500 ideas, $1,000 ideas, $2.
Because that's all you're thinking about making it.
Because all you're thinking about, right?
Because the only leverage you have.
Right, exactly. Because of what you believe is
to be the truth.
But the key is what you believe. What you believe. Because you might have, I can't tell you how many times, like anybody could have gone to Grant Cardone and done what I did, probably way better, right? Anybody could have, you know, there's probably a million things that I could have done that I didn't, that someone else did, right? You interviewed Larry King. That was amazing. I could have done it. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
You hated me for that so
kidding.
bad, man.
No, much respect.
No.
I was inspired by that.
That was cool.
I was inspired by that. I'm tongue in cheek. I'm being humorous. But,
no, totally.
But you know, it's
as you guys can tell, we have like a very like natural, like friendly, competitive love. You know.
Really?
Jordan Pippen.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
Kobe Shaq shit.
No, I actually didn't. I never got to interview the guy because rest in peace, he passed away before we had the. But I was there. It was so cool. That was such a cool like. That was such an interesting like. I remember walking into the studio and sitting down in the waiting room. I'm not a big fan of like celebrities. I don't really keep, like, I'll watch shows, but I don't really keep up with names and stuff like that. So I couldn't tell you who I was sitting in front of, but there was like 6 people in there. Every single one of them I recognized. Like I was just like, hi, nice to meet you. And like they're just sitting in a waiting room like they're at a dentist office, man. And every single one of them probably had more than like 50 million in their bank, and they're all A-lists and like biggest movies in the world. And I'm just like, what am I doing? What on earth? Larry King was super cool though, man. Yeah. You would have loved it. I think the coolest thing about him was the guy, you know, was so interesting because when I met him, it was right after he had a stroke, and you know his son was like wheelchairing him in, you know, Chance, you know, shout out to him, and he was like, the guy could barely walk or talk, But the moment the camera turned on, completely different human being.
Yeah,
As if like he just like
Showtime.
gained 50 years of like
Yeah.
age and like he's
Yeah.
20 all over again.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
he just goes along like, where the heck did this come from? You know, it's
He
such a
loves
trip.
to do it. He loves to do it. See, to me, that was always the dream, to get paid to play. You know, to get paid to play. And that doesn't mean it's not hard. To be honest with you, like, find a hard that's fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like and I got that from skating. Skating is hard. Like, yeah, it's fun, but like, dude, jump down 10 stairs, flip your board, jump on the rail. See how fun it is when you fall 10 times and then do it again and again and again and again. Like, it's hard, but it's a hard you love. It's, what I like to say is like, it should find something, work hard at something that feels easy. Let that land.
Work hard at something that feels.
It's very similar to the idea of do what you love.
At a certain level, right?
Yeah,
At a
yeah.
responsible level. And be what you love to put effort into. That would be the parentheses caveat. Do what you love, parentheses, to put effort into. Because I could love basketball, but do I love to like sweat it out every day and shoot 100 shot, right? So try to, whatever your capacity that you naturally, intuitively give most effort to, as you could tell, mine is to communicate, right? Because I'm inspired by it. So makes sense. I have a podcast. If I tried to start a construction company, probably wouldn't be very successful. So play to what it is you are. But the step one is to test things, the match thing, to level up on what lights your flame so that you know what you are. And you just got to keep trying things until you find it. And when you do, it'll naturally feel easier. It'll naturally feel there's a willingness to do the hard, as opposed to thinking like, oh, let me just keep on keeping on. You know, life is short. We're gonna die.
Keep on going, Jimmy.
Once again, man, I don't beat you said it, but I love that match analogy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go rub up on things. And imagine if the match got to press. I'm serious. I'm serious.
Yo, that was so out of context, bro. That's freaking Malik, man. See, he barely speaks, but when he does, he makes sure it's like, it's loud and clear, man. Loud and clear. Don't tell Bibi to rub up on things, because he might do it literally.
Yeah, but I mean, it's true. It's like, go try things. Imagine if the match got depressed in his head and he's like, oh, I'll never light on fire. I'll never. And it's like, no, just try things that are more likely to. Just keep trying things, little match, right? It sounds silly, but I think people need to do that to themselves. They need to be kind to themselves. Life is hard. And if you don't do that, nobody
I
else
feel like that would actually make a really good like cartoon visual. Like if you were to like expand on that,
Like a Pixar short film or something?
yeah. Like a cartoon visual where you just have like, you know, just whatever, a few editors just like put something together. I feel like that would be a really great like motivational video to put out.
Have you seen the movie Soul?
No.
On Disney?
Such a good movie,
It's
man.
my favorite animated
Oh
film
my
ever.
God, such a good
Soul.
movie.
It's a beautiful film about this guy who's a musician and he loves to do music and he's a teacher and never pursued his dream. So long story short, he gets like a second chance at life and he goes to the afterlife and sees what could have been and learns about people who pursued their dream or people who regret not pursuing their dream in the afterlife, and then comes back and gets a chance to live his dream. But it's such a beautiful film about finding yourself, failing, feeling like it's too late, you've wronged too many times, but forgiving yourself and knowing you can start fresh, start clean, and have a beautiful momentum forward. And that's hard for us sometimes. So the film does that in such a perfect way. And this musician like lives his dream and gets to taste it. I don't want to spoil the movie, but I highly recommend people see it.
The ending
Say
was
less.
amazing.
Say
The
less.
ending was amazing.
Beautiful movie.
Like the ending message, like when I saw the end, I was just like, whoa.
Yeah, perfect.
Like just changed my, like literally I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Man,
Yeah, I think that's there's this really cool thing that I heard recently, and it was basically about like, you know, no matter what point that you're in right now in this moment, and it could be nowhere near where you want to be. If someone told you that in this entire game called life that this was just a part of the plan, and you have no idea when or how long it's going to take, but at some point in this game called life, you're going to get to where you're going to get, but you have to be here right now first. You're going to be more accepting of where you're at, and you're going to, you know, take advantage of your situation, and you're never going to lose your motivation towards going what you need to go towards.
And you'll find a sense of peace in doing the work. You know, for me, for example, like right now, I got a lot of things going on. I have a lot of pressure. I'll spare you the details. It is tremendous pressure, for me at least. So many things I'm managing and people, and I find it's like so much stuff that I've never done before, and it's, you know, scary and all that. But it's not unique, right? A lot of people go through this, right? But I will say, like, for me, it's like learning how to find like a peace in the pressure kind of thing. I think when you do that, you you derive your, right, like action beats anxiety. So I feel like for me, it's like, no matter how overwhelming things are, let's just say, if I have simple rules, right, define the game in a winnable way. So if I just say, okay, if I pray all 5 prayers today, I send out 3 emails and I do this, get a workout, whatever, I'm good, right? So then that's the game. And that can go years, you know, and if you win that game, you're going to end up at the great place anyways. So like focusing on that instead of like feeling like, no matter what I do every day, I'm not X. Till this day, I still skate. I'm 31 years old. I went skating yesterday. I'm going skating tomorrow. I'm setting up a new board tonight. Right? Like, so I think it's important to keep things fun and moving and youthful and fluid. Otherwise our dreams happen in our bodies, not our heads, right? You got to go feel it, touch it, experience it, not, logically be cool and be like, oh, got my purpose. Let me,
You can easily forget your dreams, man. You can
of course.
Life is so quickly.
Whatever you focus on, you get more of.
Yeah, it can catch you up. But I think I love the day-to-day stuff, like applying, like taking it day by day. Like,
yep.
I think when I did that,
one day at a time.
It's not like I forgot about my dream, but like I'm not tripping anymore about accomplishing it. I'm just kind of like
you're living the
control
dream.
The controllables. Yes, yeah.
And that point is a stop along the way. Even if you got there, you're gonna
keep
there,
going.
You're not gonna be like, oh, made it. I'm gonna take a nap now, right? You're gonna pick the next thing and the next thing and the next thing.
Yeah.
So the goal is the rhythm of living. So that's the goal. So my goal is I want to interview big people. I want to hop on planes all the time. I want to have an abundance of money. I want to have cool people around me. I want to sell ethical products. I want to have great business partners. Literally, I just think in that energy, and then things can manifest more specifically. But if you manage the energy, a lot of the other stuff kind of like fills in on its own. I think a lot of people get so logical about stuff, but very few people living their dream got there logically. A lot of it is spiritually, energetically, emotionally, passionately, right? That's why I talk so enthusiastically, because you cannot feel that which you don't express. If people are always calm, cool, collected, they're going to be calm, cool, collected about their goals and dreams. But if they're animated, expression, passionate, it doesn't have to be out loud, but at some level, they have to be experiencing that. If I don't say the word phenomenal, how can I feel it, right? How was the movie? Good, great, excellent, amazing, phenomenal. See how by saying it, I activate emotional energy that wouldn't be there otherwise? The same is true in day-to-day life. The same is true in our inner mind. So I think that stuff is like self-hypnosis.
What's your thoughts or how much do you believe in the idea of like stoicism?
I think it's great, but again, anything that's so black and white in form, it's limited. But yeah, I think stoicism, depending on the nuance of it, yeah, there's a lot of value in that, especially for, I guess men and women. But for men, I think there is something powerful about having the capacity to, while also balancing with the self-awareness of one that doesn't serve you as much as vulnerability or passion or enthusiasm may, right? There's nuances to it. But in general, yeah, it's, the ideal state is to be centered, balanced, and grateful. Everything else is fleeting, high highs, low lows, but balance is where it's at.
I love it. This has been fun, man.
Yeah.
No, it's been epic.
It's been a blast. I could continue going on, but we've been almost 2 hours into this. Yeah. So it's like.
So you've had it.
I haven't had it. No, you want to keep going? We keep going, man. We keep vibing.
No. It's all good. We could do a round 2 next time.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. You're going to Egypt, huh?
Yes, sir.
Monday. You're out for a month?
Sunday I'll be
Oh, is that what your background is?
Yes, so I'm half Egyptian and then half Mexican.
Oh, sick.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, you're leaving
I'll be gone for probably about 3-ish weeks.
Nice.
Yeah, so I'll be traveling a little bit.
When you come back, we'll get you hooked up with some sugarcane juice.
Let's do it.
Hell yeah.
Sugar cane juice?
Yeah, that's like a classic thing in Egypt. Bro.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
It's like
a little plastic thing. Yeah.
And in Mexico.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
True. Very true.
And India, Asia, whatever.
Yeah.
So, Omar, where can people find you, bro, when they look you up?
They can't, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's really tough.
You can find him in Adam's living room right here, right now.
On Instagram at Omar_the_Rockstar, Facebook by my name, Omar Elattar, or on YouTube, you could put my name or The Passionate Few podcast, and all podcast platforms worldwide.
Cool. Malik wants to get on your show, so how does he apply?
Perfect, yeah. Perfect, yeah. Email Adam, and
we'll look over your request.
Yeah, he'll hand it to Nicolette, and she will process the application.
We'll go from one Omar
to the other Omar. Oh man, well hey man, appreciate you for hopping on, bro. Thank you so
Appreciate
much.
you guys. Thank you so
Hella
much.
fun,
Yeah,
bro.
man, for sure.
Appreciate you guys.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Likewise.
No, it was dope. We definitely either should, just have more conversations on here, or let's just flip and hang out, have more conversations, because there's definitely a lot of stuff I still would like to pick your brain on.
Awesome.
And you kind of look like my uncle too, so. Yeah. That's not why I want to hang out, but like I just wanted to throw that in there. No, that's why I want to hang out.
That's funny.
Sick.
Well, yeah. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely.